it's like the wides aren't even always that wide. I always have a problem getting like fancy shoes.
So I mean, if you're joining us now, because we are live right now, and you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, well, we're just having some fun here talking about feet and talking about this lovely photo. Yay, Tom, where's our photo that we took? I didn't see the photo that I took with you there.
Tom was around, they told me.
Tom was around.
I know, we missed each other. I was looking for you, Gabe. I don't know how we.
I went down to the wing truck and everything. I thought you might be around.
Oh, I heard there was a hot dog truck too. So, while we feel a little time while Facebook lets everybody know we're here. So this was the lovely San Diego Festival of Books over the weekend. It was really a good day. I mean, we had a really good sales day, and I think talking to the other stores, I haven't gotten they haven't compared it to other years, but for us, it was. Adrian says we came close the first year. I think this exceeded it though, as far as sales go. So we had a really good day. But this picture I love because take it. We looked at the three of us looked at each other. We're kind of who's, and we actually said who's the meanest. It wasn't snarky. It was who's.
I would think Scott would take that prize, but
then we looked around and it was just it looked at me and I was like, well, I can take that. And then Gabe came out with because we were talking about how mushy the grass was in the whole bit. And I said, yeah, and I got my Birkenstocks on, and Gabe came out with the line that Birkenstocks never look good. And it's okay, you win me for the day.
Leave it to Gabe.
You win the meanest of the three of us in this photo. Because I was like, yeah, I could throw some barbs down too.
Who took
trying
the
to
photo?
keep it 100?
Keeping it real, man.
That's
Who took that photo?
Lynn,
I know they're comfy. But
hey, no, they're not just comfy. They have good arch support as we age.
And I'm telling you, the young people think they're stylish.
I
have friends that have 5 or 6 pairs. I only have one.
Oh no, I have 7 or 8 pairs. So don't even start with me on it. So Gabe, don't look at my feet.
I'm not looking in your closet, man.
Just don't look down. Just don't.
Maybe Andrea has something to add on this point. I bet she does.
Yes, I do. I have 4 pairs. But slides, and I back them up. I have gray, red, white, and black, and I back them up. I have extras just in case that style goes away.
I love it. I go for the. I don't have the 2 strap. I go for the one. The 1 strap are a little more fashionable, Gabe. Just saying. But anyways, back to the festival. It was great. If you were in San Diego, I hope you stopped by and saw it. It was on the campus of the University of San Diego. It was a really good day. So I'll stop sharing that.
Perfect San Diego day too.
It was a perfect San Diego day. I love Amanda says Scott looks pretty grumpy. When doesn't Scott look grumpy is what I want to know. Scott,
that's his persona. That's who he
is.
That's who he is.
It's like asking the sun not to shine, man.
Right. And Beth's on here saying that Arizonas are classics. I wear the Madrids, is what I wear. So those are the Birkenstocks that are in my closet.
Yeah, I think my style is Barbados, but don't quote me.
Okay. All right. I don't know what the order is because everybody kind of came in at different times here, but I'm going to guess that it's going to go. Gabe, sorry, I think you're first. So it's going to go Gabe, Amanda, Andrea, Tom, I think. So I got screen share on because I shared that screen. So we're ready to go. So Gabe, take it away.
All right. We're going to start with, what do I start with? Sorry, moved on to share screen before I shared the screen. So we've got this is a book I found really, really interesting when I read the manuscript a year ago, whenever that was. Storm in the Stars by Dan Zancanella. And this is a glimpse at the life of, excuse me, Mary Shelley, Percy, and Lord Byron, all who gathered together that fateful night when Frankenstein was was idealized, and Mary Shelley brought Frankenstein out as they were sitting around being intellectuals and sharing stories, as one does when one's a super intellectual. So it's early 19th century, and the story begins with Shelley and Mary actually have known each other forever. Mary was a little girl, and Shelley was around. He's a little bit older, and at a certain point in time, they meet again, and they fall in love, and they begin. Their relationship sort of takes off where we're left. They had a relationship of sorts. Anyways, they fall in love. He's a little bit older. They start traveling together. They start having their life together, and then they go on this trip. I think it was to Switzerland or someplace like that, and like on the shores of Lake Geneva or something. And they are there with Lord Byron and the guy who wrote The Vampire, Politro, what's his name? Anyways, so this is the genesis of the Frankenstein story and the first vampire story, and you get to see where the fermentation of ideas comes from with these characters. So they're all influenced by each other, and they're all like trying to outdo each other. Not in a really competitive way, but like you got to keep up, So it's a really well told story. As I said, it starts off with a really young Mary Shelley playing tag with her brothers and sisters, and we move on to the beginning of Frankenstein and the genesis of Dracula. And literary greatness. It's a story that everybody knows, that they were just sitting around chatting one night and these stories came up, but this is a realization of it. But a lot of fun.
Andrew's on saying I'm gonna screw up this name. Polidori wrote The Vampire. I love vampire like a fire.
With a Y.
This looks really good, Gabe. I love so is it a big, thick, juicy one?
It's not that fat. It's 300 pages.
Okay.
It's
all right.
Is it? I can tell you product details. 288 pages. So
all right.
it's a
so kind of. It's
yeah, it's a good size. It's a
go
full
into that close to that 400. So it's a good juicy one. Beth's on here saying looks like a Beth, I can't speak to save my life. CHELAN. What is that? Chelan Castle in Lake Geneva in Montreal?
Maybe. I think that's what it is, actually.
Okay.
You're right. Lake Geneva.
I'm glad you're pronouncing it and not me.
Oh, I'm the worst. And Tom, thank you for sharing that photo. I'm not sharing it because I look horrible in it. I hope
you look great. I was afraid you were going to say that, but no, you look great.
But I was hoping we didn't take a picture with you, did we?
I know. I never think of that. I should.
Gabe was on it.
I was hoping to run across. If I found Gabe, definitely we would have all taken our picture. But
absolutely.
Yep. All right.
But
like I said,
I'm the worst about that. They always ask us to take photos. I'm like, I got a job to do. Really, I got time to take stupid pictures all the time.
I'm all about the publicity, man. Let's
Boy, that's your end. I'm usually like lifting boxes and talking to.
You guys would never know that when I first started this job. First of all, I hated public speaking, and hated my picture taken.
Oh my god!
I know. I blacked out public speaking. Like I would get up and would not literally would go into a blackout and not know, get off and go, I don't know what I just said. So Seth Marco was actually the one that made me do a bookseller night. And that just look at the monster he created.
Look, I know. Now we know who to blame. We'll talk.
That's whose arm gets broken next week.
Blame Seth Marco when you go on your next sales call. He created this monster. Okay, Amanda, take it away. Oh, you're right. It's CHILLON. Chillin. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So here we go. So my first book I have for you is Haven by Emma Donoghue. very exciting. Fun fact, signed copies will be available at Warwick's tomorrow. Actually, did this one come out? This one came out. No, it is tomorrow. I apologize since I was not here last week. I have a couple that came out last week to share with you, but this one is out tomorrow. So here we go on this one. So this one is set in the 7th century Ireland. A priest named Art, he has a dream telling him that he needs to leave this sinful world behind. So he decides to take himself and 2 monks to a remote island to build a monastery. And then while there, one of the men takes his devout calling very seriously, and it creates almost a Lord of the Fly-esque environment where the men must survive these very harsh conditions. And I will leave it at that. Don't want to give any more away. So there you go.
Emma Donohue's always good.
I read a great review of this over the weekend, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Deborah's a huge Emma Donoghue fan, and I'm surprised I haven't seen that galley. I'm sure she read it digitally because I was not even aware that it was out. And she always makes a big deal about.
Wait a minute. Okay, can I just talk about family for a minute here?
Yes.
I think there's somebody might be in your family that could have gotten you a galley of this thing.
I think she probably. She's not the rep though.
Technically, no.
Oh, but still you are connected. You still have a
Ooh,
connection.
a little of the inside dirt here. Okay.
Yeah. Technically not their rep.
All right.
But
all right.
you think a father would see
a father and daughter and daughter, but no, Amanda, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. Just bringing you back in from vacation. Full force. Here we are.
That's the pull, man. It's a rough starting back.
All right, Andrea. And look at Andrea's just like, I'm going.
Yeah. So the slides are not that ugly. The slides are cool.
No, the slides aren't that ugly. I moved over because Crocs had some really cool slides too, and I don't like the regular, but these are more comfortable, and they have great support for the geezers in your life if you want to gift these. And
it's not just book recommendations on Tea Time. We're just saying.
I draw the line at Crocs, okay? Because my friends who wear Birkenstocks, they moved into the Crocs, and I said no. I draw the line.
I have a great Croc story. My feet were hurting.
Tea Time brought to you by Birkenstock.
Birkenstock and Crocs. I was at Disneyland with my daughter, and my feet, we were there like all day, and I wore the wrong shoes, and I literally almost bought a pair of Disneyland Crocs.
Oh my God.
I was like waiting for them to find my size. My feet were hurting that bad.
That is so
They didn't have my size, so I didn't buy them. There we go.
I love that.
Anywho,
Thank you for that story.
Thank you, Beth, for indulging us with. Beth is cracking up with us back on Facebook. Thank you for indulging us in the silliness that we're having going on today. So back to books.
It's pretty fun. Can you see my share?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to talk about William McIlvaney and Ian Rankin's The Dark Remains. McIlvaney unfortunately passed away before he finished his manuscript, so the great Ian Rankin came in and did a seamless job. I talked about this in hardcover, and it's now out on paperback, and it's been named, it was shortlisted for the 2022 Book of the Year at the British Book Awards, so that's great. People in America, the reviewers liked it too. A darkly beautiful novel, Maureen Corrigan said, and it's just really nice to see some really great crime writing come out and be available now in paperback from World Noir. That's the Europa Edition's fine crime imprint. It's $16.95, and it is out in the world right now. So
I remembered you talking about that and thinking it was really good. So glad to
yeah. I just, William McIlvaney has a lot of fans, and it's just, it's great that this didn't just, languish in the estate's drawer, right? And like the editor thought it was, it had like all the qualities of his earlier works and thought it needed to, be shown. And so, and Rankin did a great job, obviously. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah, it's nice.
So Beth Johnson, we have a couple of Beths in Washington. Beth Johnson, who's in Ohio, she cracks up. She says, I'm in Ohio, and yes, I do have Birkenstocks, but never would we discuss them.
Well, that's,
Because she's a lady.
that's
'Cause you're a
right. It's a
lady.
Midwestern thing, and we're just like, we don't have those the same sorts of sensibilities. And Beth
And we would
Johnson-
never call people out and telling them that they're ugly. Looking at you, Gabe.
I did not say they're ugly. I said
No.
they just don't look good.
So
They
maybe
just don't look good.
maybe that's my Midwestern roots. I don't think I would have done that either, Gabe. No.
But I, like I said, we looked around that picture and we said, who of the three of us is the meanest? And we literally said, who of the three of us is the meanest? We kind of all looked at
This
each
is the
other.
worst.
Any of us could take that title.
True.
Gabe won it for the day. So
I don't
Tom?
know,
That's the only reason. That's the only reason I said it, so we could end that conversation right then and there. Nip that. We could have been
nip
there all
that
day
in the bud.
talking about
Yeah,
it.
you
I
did.
really feel like Scott has mellowed a bit in the last few
He
years.
really has.
Oh, he has.
He
yeah.
has a lot, actually.
I don't think he would admit it though.
No. Well,
No,
I
I
think
mean,
he might actually.
Really.
He's still a curmudgeon, but
Yes,
Yeah.
but he's a lovable curmudgeon at
Yeah.
this point. Amanda's saying never talk about religion, politics, or footwear. No, I think
That's
it's
right.
footwear's part of it. All right. Okay. Tom? God,
I
you
don't
take-
know if I can talk about my book. I'm about to elevate this conversation, and
Do you really?
I don't know. It's going to be a tough lift, but I'm going to
That's
try
a-
because I'm going to talk about a Nobel Prize winner.
Oh,
Nobel Prize winner.
after Birkenstocks.
Yes, exactly. Never happened before. This is a first. So tea time. So tomorrow on sale. I think it's tomorrow. Afterlives by Abdul Razak Gurnah. So he won the Nobel Prize last year. And so it's kind of it's a very sad publishing story because this is his 10th novel. And most of his books, when he won the Nobel Prize, were not available around the world. And especially here in the States, really, there wasn't much of anything.
Wow.
So that's the sad part. But the happy part is once that happened, then the world pays it. Then publishers and the world pay attention. So Riverhead is publishing Afterlives, which was originally published in the UK in 2020 before the Nobel Prize. And so he's I think the fourth African Nobel laureate. He's the first Black Nobel laureate since Toni Morrison. So it's really exciting to bring this book into the world. As it just shows you there's a lot of great literature out there that it can be lost, if there's not something that helps you discover it. And when they published, so it was published in the UK in 2020 to amazing reviews. And the publisher, who had been his publisher for 20 years, Bloomsbury, I think, she was like, this is going to be the book that sets changes the trajectory of his career. And then it came out and that didn't happen. But thankfully, reviews were good, but really nothing else. And then the Nobel Prize happened. So he's a writer of, all of his books are set. So he came to England as a young boy, and he's taught at University of Kent for decades. But his books are all set in Africa and East Africa in particular. And they're about the effects of colonialism. So all of the books, I think, are about that. In the new book, Afterlives, it's about the German occupation and turning into a colony of what's now Tanzania. And what's beautiful about it is that he's recentering it. So it's not, you're not getting the German perspective, you're getting the African perspective. So you're seeing it from all different kinds of all these different characters. It's subtle, it's beautiful, it's sweeping. It's a masterpiece. I would think if I want to compare it to if you like books like The English Patient, obviously it's coming from a whole different direction, but that's the kind of book it is. It's big. It's a historical novel set just after the turn of the 19th. So 1906 it may start and goes for decades after that. And it was just something the German occupation, I knew nothing about that. And really Germany, Belgium, I guess England kind of divided the African continent. So it's brutal, it's beautiful, it's amazing. So from the Nobel Committee, they said one of the world's most prominent post-colonial writers who has, with great compassion, penetrated the effects of colonialism on the lives of uprooted and migrating individuals. And then it was on the front page of this past Sunday's New York Times Book Review. And the reviewer called him a master of the art form who understands human failings and conflicts, both political and intimate, and how these shortcomings create afflictions from which nations and individuals continue to suffer needlessly generation after generation. So really important. We're going to be publishing. So this is first time published in the States, and then we'll follow it up next year with other new editions of some of the older books. But it's great to have the world pay attention to one of the world's great writers.
Okay, so I'm going to show my ignorance again. Gabe, keep your comments to yourself.
I'm from the Midwest, so I will not comment.
I'm just wondering if he owns Birkenstocks or not. That's all.
But on the Nobel Prize for Literature, which I'm assuming that's what he won. So okay, that's so Andrea put that in there. So he won it for Paradise, or does he
No,
win
you
it
don't
for
win
his
it.
breadth of work?
Yeah, you're right. Good question. You win it for the whole body of work. So even though it was published on the, just after this was published, it's not related necessarily to
a particular book. It's a Nobel laureate is a breadth of work. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, a lifetime work, but a lifetime award. Yeah.
So we had one from one of my publishers, the New Press, Paradise.
That's right.
It published in 1995. They're always sort of on the cutting edge, and they do a lot of progressive. It's mostly a nonfiction house, but they do progressive fiction. At least one in translation, usually at least one a year. And this was. So we had this ready to go when he won, which was nice.
Got it.
That's great.
Okay. All right.
I mean, what's amazing is that, when you think of that, 1995, really just obscurity in a way for decades. And it's just so wrong, but there it is.
And I'm trying to think of I could picture the cover, but I can't think of the title. I'm one of those customers. So you guys, I think it's a South African novel, though, that kind of reminds me that this might be one of those sagas that it's a perennial favorite of everybody. It's probably 20 years old now too, but I can't remember it. But I think it sounds like it's in the same sort of vein as far as the epic kind of storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. And but we were talking about length. So this is the galley, but it's a hardcover. But it's not, even though it's covers a lot of time and space, it's not 500 pages.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's one of those books that you'll get to jump on the 10 best of the year lists by hearing about it now and reading it now. Sorry, Amanda. Amanda just put a link to all of his books, so you can click on by our author, so you can look at everything that's available by him. So thank you for that, Amanda. Okay, Gabe, back to you.
Always good. I always wonder, like Garcia Marquez, it's almost like he got it for 100 Years of Solitude, because he didn't really write anything really that important before that. I always found him to be kind of a different animal, because his best books are after.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. Yeah.
But he's the only one. Everybody else has really had to pay their dues.
Well, and then there's like they're oftentimes at the end of their career or already gone, right?
Already gone.
But there's these things that happen like a few years ago, I don't know, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, somebody from on the Random House list was awarded the Pulitzer Prize, and I really thought that it was like basically for his earlier works, because this novel like did not even touch like his earlier stuff. So I think that happens on those committees a bit too sometimes. So.
Well, I was reading an interview with this writer, and he was saying since he's won the award, he hasn't gotten any writing done, because there's so much that comes with, which is great, but I'm sure there's part of him that wants to get back to the work. Yeah.
He was able to do it for so long.
He's 73, man. You think he wants to work anymore? Yeah, that's the thing about, you get vetted, then writing
interviews around the world, and now it's being translated into every language, which is all fantastic. But
All right, Gabe.
But we wait for the next thing. So the next book I'm going to share with you is The Ghetto Within by Santiago H Amigorena. This book was published in France to great reviews. I got Le Monde and Le Figaro reviews up there just because you Americans don't see reviews from these places.
You just wanted to say those names.
Very franche. Yeah, my dexterity with the languages and stuff. But so this is one of those books that is international sensation. It's from Via, which is our works in translation, mostly, unless it's Australian or Brit or one of the Commonwealth states, perhaps. But this is book. The setup is 1928. Our protagonist, Vicente Rosenberg, 1928. Vicente leaves his native Poland. He is a Polish Jew, and he is moving to Argentina because, the Argentine is blowing up. It's wide open. You can build a house for nothing. You got acreage. You can graze land. You can graze cows, whatever. The Americas in the 20s were rife with immigration, and he comes to Argentina and the Americas and begins his life, meets Rosita, and they get married and raises a family. And then war hits the continent. And he begins receiving, he's always been receiving letters, regular letters from his mother. And as time goes on, the letters become more sporadic until finally they stop. And so this is a young man who is feeling this guilt of leaving everybody behind, and survivor's guilt kicks in. Missing his family, his imagining of what is probably happening are imaginings of things that actually already happened in the timeline of the narrative. So he does some really brilliant stuff there that he's playing with. But he becomes racked with guilt, and he really can't really figure it out. So silence becomes his refuge. So what we find out coming, the genesis of the story is Majorano's grandfather. That it's pretty much his story, in that he's the fellow who came over in the 20s, and he's the one who went through this experience. So he's imagining what his grandfather felt, but he remembers his grandfather's silence, and then the trauma that trickles down, the generational trauma that trickles down is all explored here, and he just does a really wonderful job. So that's one that I like to recommend for the thoughtful reader and interesting. It's not a really bummer kind of a book. It is a very serious book. It's a short story. It's a short narrative. It's 176 pages, so it's not going to exhaust you. But these slight books, they when they're done well, they pack a punch.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we were talking about the one that I'm reading for next year. It's like sometimes just in a short, subtle thing can be as impactful or more impactful than long, drawn out discussion
big epic,
about
right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's like that short thing will just punch you and you'll go. I'll brag for a minute, because we hosted Julian Barnes last week, so I got to actually chat with him.
Huh?
And got to quote him back to himself. Sure, he loved that.
He's still talking about that.
I'm sure he is, over cocktails with all his friends. But
He's writing a slender novel about it, actually.
well, and his novels are slender. And the new one, though, there was a line in it, and I can't remember now. Oh, something to do with how I'm going to screw it up, because I had to read it to him. But anyway, so I read it. It was one of those things that just like a sentence can just like stop you in the middle of a book. And that's what sometimes some of those shorter ones, their language is very succinct. So the book I was thinking of earlier, Tom, was The Power of One, Bryce Courtenay.
Oh yeah. I bet
in comparison to that.
I bet
and
it
I
would appeal. I haven't read Power of One, but I bet
I'm kind of thinking it might.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. Anyways, because that was a big one years ago, and I think it kind of whatever. All right, Amanda, you ready? We need to wake you up from vacation mode.
I'm here.
Bring you
Okay.
back.
Ready. Okay, so there we go. The next one I have is called The Milky Way. So it's the autobiography of our galaxy by Moira McTeer. So Moira, she's an astrophysicist. And so this is a quirky tell-all memoir told from the point of view of the Milky Way. So here she just kind of, brings in all kinds of fun little stories as the Milky Way tells us about the history of themselves. So we, of course, do live in the Milky Way. So that's what makes it really fun. So she kind of goes through the whole bit of how it came to be, what it's like, all of the stuff that goes on within the Milky Way, galaxies in general. So it's kind of fun. It's really cute. And it is really entertaining because you're thinking the Milky Way, the galaxy, but when it's told from their own perspective, it's got a little bit of fun in it. So there you go, the Milky Way. And this one was out last week. So everything you want to know about the Milky Way told straight from themselves.
Okay, so that's an interesting concept. Go ahead, Andrew, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just wondering what imprint that's on.
That one is from our Grand Central.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept, though.
Good concept.
Like, so the stars are talking.
The whole Milky Way. I think that's kind of fun. I like when they do that, and I think it's an interesting perspective, and it makes the the dense science of it all super fun.
Yeah.
So when you have an interesting, unique perspective on it,
I think we talked about the telescope or whatever. I think at one of these we talked about. I think Gabe, you and I were talking about. It's like what they're seeing and like the whole thing, the whole space thing. I'm not smart enough and can't wrap my head around it. I mean, it's just like the
My
thing that
imagination doesn't go there either. I can't like.
Yeah, the things are like these billions of light year. What's out there? I can barely wrap my head around the fact that when you get out of our atmosphere, that it's not bright out there, like the sun doesn't shine. So I can barely wrap my head around that. So that shows you.
Well, we were saying a few weeks ago, there's so much great science writing. I'm not talking about it today, but one of the books I was thinking of talking about is a physics book. So it would have been perfect. But there's just so much out there now.
Yeah,
There's
and
so
it makes it easy to digest because, like you're saying, these concepts are so complicated.
Yeah.
And it's just like beyond what I think the mind on some level can comprehend. So to be able to bring it down to something that you can kind of digest.
That's what I love about
really
that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
You gotta be able to
Yeah.
relate it to something, when it's just like
Yeah.
sleep in like 3 sentences.
All right. Andrea, you're next.
Okay, let's see.
What you got?
I'm going to talk about The Passenger, which is a really cool travel magazine, from that's distributed by Europa. So this is kind of like Europa heavy. And the latest one, it's a quarterly, and the latest one is on California. This one's $22. It's trade paper, but it's got a perfect bindery, so it's not just like it's hefty. It's got a really nice cover. Like the end papers are cool. It's got French flaps. It's really designed wonderfully, so it'd make a nice gift for somebody that's coming to visit you, that's not from California. Like a little host gift for your people. And it's always beautifully illustrated, and it gives you just various and sundry facts, and like obscure, and also, well, something's going on there. I don't know why it's not going forward, but obscure facts, but then also just the bread and butter of like whatever subject they're talking about. In the past, this is the first time they've broken a state out. Usually it's a country. So Ireland was one of the last ones. They did one on India, Japan, Greece, Brazil. So, and as La Repubblica says, it's a wonderful publication and a beautiful object, and it's really true. It's just nice to pick it up. The photographs are great. I wish my Wi-Fi was better so I could show you like the range of it, but it's just like really excellently done. It's well edited. So as it says here, fully illustrated, The Passenger collects the best new writing, photography, art, and reportage from around the world. Can't go wrong with this book, and it's in stock right now at your favorite store, Warwick's.
I love it.
Very cool.
And like you were saying, that's something to put in like your guest room for when people are coming to visit.
Yeah, it's nice. And, I mean, you can learn something from these. That's what I love about them. It's not, you might be a lifelong Californian, but like there's some, interesting information and stories that you're going to learn something for sure. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
some
love
of
it.
that content looked a little Mike Davis, like very
Right.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
focused for journalism.
But I also love the quarter. Well, how did you describe it?
A
It's
quarterly.
a quarterly or ish. I mean, it's
Yeah, magazine-ish.
You're right. So it's like, and seems like there's a resurgence of beautiful physical magazines like this.
Yeah, and Europa picked this series up a little bit before the lockdown period, and I think it was the perfect time for that because it can act as an armchair travel
Yeah.
object, and it does defy the ephemeral, I think, because the writing is so good and it is a beautiful art object that you can go to look at the photos. So
Well, and we have to support
publication.
we have to support the journalistic type writing again.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's novelists, but it's like,
Yeah, it comes from Europa. They're, they wouldn't be distributing this line unless they thought it was of high literary value. So
Yeah. All right, Tom Benton, what do you have for
Okay,
us?
so I have a great book and a great story. So the book is The Haunting of Haji Hotak and Other Stories. The author is Jamil Jan Kochai. And so we've talked about stories on Tea Time, how we may not all think we appreciate them, but when and I love what you said, Julie, is just reading them like a little bit at a time. You don't
Right.
have to.
You don't have to go through cover to cover.
Devour it, yes. So this is his second book. We published 99 Nights in Logar maybe 2 years ago. Tremendous reviews. It was nominated for the Penn Hemingway Award. So he's a writer on the rise. These stories are fantastic. He was born in a refugee camp in Pakistan. He's from Afghanistan. And so he's giving us sort of, in the same way that Gurna is giving us colonial life from the African perspective. He's telling the stories of Afghans, not from the soldiers' perspective or America's perspective, but from the Afghan perspective. And they're wild, they're surreal, they're just beautiful. He is a talent to watch. The reviews are incredible. So all of that is great. Highly recommend the book. But then the story that came out recently is even better. So he's at Stanford. He's a Stegner Fellow at Stanford. And so he came to America very young, I think maybe 5, 6, did not speak English. And so he started in, I'm pretty sure California schools, and not really finding a place and not knowing the language until his second grade teacher, Ms. Lung, made the difference for him. And he had always remembered that second grade teacher. But of course, life goes on. It's 20 years later. She's moved on, she's been transferred to different places, but he always wanted to thank her. And so the story goes that her husband got in touch with him, I guess, and said, Miss Lung is my wife. And so they started to correspond. And then she came to a signing that he did in Davis, California. And so this is the picture of the two of them at the signing, and he was thrilled, she was thrilled. So it's just, we need more feel-good stories. This is one of them. So this was it was a great story on NPR this past weekend.
I saw that on Twitter, I think last week. I think it was
he posted it. That's right. He posted it on Twitter, a thread on Twitter. Then they interviewed him and her on NPR. It's worth a listen. Definitely, you should go back and listen to it. It's like 6 minutes. But so happy for the two of them. And then it's just a reminder that, as they said on the story, we all have a teacher that we remember who made a difference, who changed something, changed the trajectory of our lives, but nothing like this. I mean, this is an amazing story. So he gives so much of the credit for who he is today to his second grade teacher. So
great. It's great.
It's wonderful. So The Haunting of Haji Hotak, highly recommend for every possible reason.
I love that. No, and I love story. Like I said, I do appreciate stories way more than, because it used to be like, oh, you can't tell stories. It's like if you view them in a different way, then, oh, I've got to read this cover to cover. It's something to add to your regular reading stack. It's a definitely adding bonus. All right, we definitely need to be lightning round. We talked a little too much about Birkenstocks today. Just saying.
If this were an actual show, we would have edited out a lot of the Birkenstock.
I would have had like the little hook on some of it. And the hook would have been probably to me, like, quit talking about Birkenstock. So all right, lightning round. Because we've got a good topic to talk about at the very end. So hopefully you'll all kind of stay around and chat, because we're bringing up the Barnes and Noble. Somebody asked on Facebook the whole Barnes and Noble kerfuffle with not doing debut. So we want to let's get some thoughts on that at the very end. So stick around with us if you want. All right, Gabe, what do you got for lightning round?
Lightning round is a book that I have not seen a madness like this for a book in a long time. I was inundated with requests from booksellers for galleys for Babel. Like, I haven't gotten this many requests for a galley in a long time.
Wow.
Anybody who's been in publishing any amount of time, we have our big authors. I have Louise Erdrich, I got Barbara Kingsolver, I got Ann Patchett, and we all know they're going to write like a really big book and we're going to sell a ton of copies. And then every once in a while, there's a book that kind of comes out of nowhere. And we felt it when we published Dennis Lehane's Mystic River. He'd been doing these mysteries that were just, selling 15, 20,000 maybe. They started selling better and better. And then he did Mystic River, and it got really crazy and it was nuts and it blew up. And this is the same thing with Kwan's book, Babel. So she's read the trilogy, the Poppy War trilogy, where she's used Chinese myths and fantasy and married them with fantasy and created this really, really strong tellings. And she doesn't hold back. She's an author that's got a lot to say. And this book is not only, it's her magnum opus so far, but it is about her fantastical world that she creates, but she's also a very political book, and it is very anti-colonial. And this is a book, Babel is this organization in the nickname of this organization at Oxford University in her world, the world that she creates. It's the Royal Institute of Translation. So it's at Oxford, known as Babel. It's 1828. Young Robert Swift, a young Chinese boy, is orphaned in Canton and brought to London by Professor Laval. And he brings them to not to Babel, but to the outskirts of Babel environs, and where he becomes immersed in foreign languages. And what Robin finds out is that Babel, there's some silver involved, and the manipulation of silver and passing out silver and mesmerizing the world. But Babel becomes the center of British colonialism, and it is essential for British colonialism. So all that stuff, like renaming names in Ireland, renaming place names in Ireland and India, everywhere, all that stuff comes out here. The power of language to colonialize really comes out here. And at a certain point, Robin, England is on the verge of war with China because of silver and opium. And at this point, he's got to decide who to do, what to do, and eases into this group called the Hermes Society, which are an anti-colonial group in England that is in existence there. So he is pulled apart, but does the right thing, and it's just really, really a thought-provoking book in this sort of fantasy. She's done. This is really a unique telling, I think.
So it's a standalone.
It's a standalone.
Okay, standalone. So it's not a part of it. So is it?
I don't think that it's going to be part of the series.
Okay.
I mean, it could possibly be. It reminded me a little in intensity to some of the works of Neil Stevenson.
Oh, okay.
There are a couple of these historicals with science embedded.
Right.
where this is a little different, but there's a lot of like real world and fantasy in there. And
Looks good.
just a really, really, really thought-provoking book.
Sounds
And page turner.
great.
Yeah, it
Sounds
sounds really good. All right, Amanda.
Alrighty, so for my last one, as usual, a children's title. This is a young adult title, The Drowned Woods from Emily Lloyd Jones, who I'm a big fan of. So once upon a time, the kingdom of Wales were rife with magic and conflict, and 18-year-old Mare is well acquainted with both. She is the last living water diviner and has spent years on the run from a prince who bound her to his service. He made her find the wells of his enemy and poison them and killed hundreds of people. When she discovered what was going on, she's like, I am out of here. And now she's on the run. But her old handler, who was also abused by the prince, came to her and said, you know what, let's go take him down. So, you know, they got to do what they got to do to save the kingdom. I love a good kingdom saving. Who doesn't? But there you go. Got a little magic, you know, a little mystery going on in there. Got a little bit of everything that you could possibly want. So there you go.
I love it.
The Drowned Woods. And a
Very
beautiful
good.
cover on top
It's
of
a
it.
really good cover. It's a
Cool
great
cover.
package.
So striking. So
Yeah.
striking.
Very
Yeah.
good one. Okay, Andrea. First of all, before we go to Andrea, okay, Andrea, I love your hat. I
you.
mentioned it. I wanted to say it from the beginning, but we got talking about our Birkenstocks.
Can we talk about hats now? Is that okay?
I think it's okay. Well, we're in lightning round, but I love your hats. I'm just saying.
Thank you. We need to get Beth Johnson's okay on that first, though, because we don't want to offend our friends from out of state.
I love it.
Okay, this is a gift, a little gift book, Never Say Pig. The book of sailors' superstitions. This is a great little book, and you know, if you live in La Jolla, you like the sea, and people you know like the sea. It's a perfect little gift book, really, and it's a reference guide that you really didn't about the sea that you really didn't know you needed, and it's set up. It has some great illustrations, and just talks about good and bad luck and what not to say, what to not bring aboard, what certain things mean if they show up while you're on a voyage. And it's just great. This is like this. I love this. I don't know if I can, let me see. So can I get this out of the way? I don't know. I can't read these things right now, so it's okay. But there's some really great reviews of this, some great blurbs. But I have a friend, my partner and I met a sailor. Well, he was an IT guy in Washington, D.C. when we lived there. His name was Ole Olafsson, and we went to a bar to have a beer, and we met this guy, and he comes from a long line of sailors in Iceland. So it's pretty harrowing to be a sailor there, right? A lot of his family members perished in the sea. And so this would be a book that he probably could have added a lot of information. This was so long ago that you could still smoke in bars, and somebody tried to light a cigarette with the candle, and he's like, no, a sailor will die. So, you can't light a cigarette with a candle. So anyway, every time I see this book, I think of our old friend Ole Olafsson. And it's just a great little gift book. It's 1895 hardcover from Harbor Publishing, and this should do well definitely through the holidays and beyond, I think, as a little impulse gift, right?
Yep, I love it.
Fantastic.
Sailors and fishermen are the most like superstitious people on the planet, I think. Like, they
For
definitely
good
have
reason, you know, it's tough being a sailor.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Tom, bring it home.
Okay. The queen of book talk, one of the queens of book talk, Allie Hazelwood, new book on sale tomorrow, Love on the Brain. This is the follow-up to, what's the first one? The Love Hypothesis. So she's, it's part of this, what I think sets the books apart is STEM. So she's writing about love and scientists. And the books have been unbelievably popular. This was that, and booksellers love this was a #1 indie
Number
next
one.
pick. Yeah, and it
Wow.
was just genuine, just love from booksellers. It wasn't us trying to get quotes. It was they just gave us the quotes. And over 100 million views on TikTok for the hashtag of the love hypothesis. So it's not her doing it, but it's, I know. Well, and I'm just gonna, so on sale tomorrow, if you like this kind of book, you'll love this. But I just want to say, don't Google Tom Benton and Ali Hazelwood and TikTok, because I made the mistake because I knew that there was a character in the first book named Tom Benton, because a bookseller had told me this. And she told me this was before the book even came out. She's like, you're in this book. I'm like, no, I have no, how could I be in this book? And she said, and you're the bad guy. I was like, oh no. But then I forgot about it. And then today I was like, oh, let's check out TikTok. And there is the people hate Tom Benton. These fans of Ali Hazelwood hate Tom Benton. So I spent way too long looking at haters. I'm just here to say that the real Tom Benton is not.
Now you know how
nothing
everybody
like that
feels when they
He
get
sucks
hated
at Tom
like that.
Benton.
We might need to put an alias up there for you so you don't.
I
get
listened
hate
to
mail.
those on audio. I listened to her 2 books, or one of them so far on audio.
Oh yeah, great,
And I
right?
did, and it was the
Do
first
you
one.
remember the character of
I
Tom
do,
Benton?
and I thought of you, and I was like, oh, that's so great.
Terrible. How did
You're
you?
the
I have,
antithesis of that Tom Benton.
exactly.
Yes.
I have to meet her. I will meet her, and I will set her straight.
Yeah, we might have to, like I said, we might have to come up with an alias for you.
Yes.
Well, the
Okay.
fan casting on the internet, some good-looking men.
Oh well. Okay, maybe I could be persuaded to like this Tom Benton.
Okay, so we've got some good stuff going. So I wanted to bring up, because I think Beth brought it up on Facebook. But Kim, I want to address Book Riot real quick, because she brought up an article that Book Riot did on it, and then Amanda pointed out that Book Riot links all their books to Amazon, which they don't have to for a revenue stream. They could do bookshop.org, which would support indies, and they would still get a revenue stream. So I know that Bookshop, so it's one of those things that's a love-hate relationship with Book Riot because of what they do with Amazon. So just giving you a little background on that. But the question that Beth brought up, and I think if you guys have some thoughts about it, is the whole BN thing about but it's not only just the middle grade readers that they're doing this on. That they're only bringing in very little, if any, quantity of debut middle grade readers.
Right.
But they also are in hardcover, but they also are doing it with authors like Jamie Ford. So Jamie Ford, we just had him on tour. He's coming down he was in Seattle, was driving around. They only had 3 copies of his new book. Because remember when Barnes and Noble used to have the big octagons, and they would have stacks of new releases. And it's not like Jamie Ford's not a known author. I mean,
right.
Hotel in the Corner, Bittersweet.
Well, the question I would have about that is I would hope if what they say is right, in his home region, which is the Pacific Northwest, hopefully they have stacks. But maybe
see, he doesn't live there anymore. He lives in Montana now.
Oh,
even though the stories
in Montana. So.
No, that's a problem.
Right.
That's moot. The point is moot.
The point is moot.
Well, the idea that Don has is that they resupply themselves, so they have more liberty, I think,
But I think it's a Discovery thing that happens. That if you're not even having it as an option on Discovery, is where it's the issue. And I think that is, and the other thing that I was thinking about, because it used to be back in the day, I mean, there's behind the scenes things as far as co-op and being paid for placement and all of that. But also just the outlet of the number of books going back to Amazon, and what Amazon is a behemoth in this whole game. You all as publishers used to be able to push down to Barnes and Noble in big quantities your titles that you wanted to push down to them, not necessarily the big names.
That
Um,
changed though a while back.
Did it?
Even before
even before Dawn?
Dawn took over.
Okay.
It was they were like there just were categories where I like midlist fiction. At least what I noticed, and I don't have any. This is all just observation on my
Right.
part going in. But you'd go in and the midlist fiction was like an afterthought, really, really sparse. I just think they were hitting, the Connollys, they were hitting the Lahanes.
Okay. So they were doing pretty much the airport store stuff, just the big stuff.
Yeah, and I think they cut down. I just remember there was a year that we published Beautiful Ruins, we published Billy Lynn's On Halftime Walk, and we published Wiley Cash's first novel, Land More Kind Than Home. And they were not books that even went, there were 25, 40, 35, 40,000 print that went into independent bookstores. And at Harper, what that caused was a lot of awareness of, without the indies, those books would not have seen the light of day. And we sold like 350,000 copies of Beautiful Ruins alone,
Yeah.
And,
that
Ben
was
Fountain's
huge.
career's been solid.
Well,
So to Beth's point though, sorry, Tom, but to Beth's point, it's like to the power of the indie then.
yeah,
I think the indies benefit. We are, and I think the publishers, they may forget, as everybody forgets, generational memory loss. But I think, the indies that's where discovery happens. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in the Barnes and Nobles in a long time. They would have, they do their picks, and but that's very select.
Their
I think
discoveries.
they still do some of that probably.
did you see you read Don's response today? Because
He did not really address it. I mean, he did.
well, but he
didn't.
did basically lift up the indie bookseller and say, we want to be more like that. There are a lot
right.
of great booksellers and we're trying to be more like that. And so in a way I sympathize, because we deal with that every day. Buyers are deciding what of our big lists they can carry and what they can't. And
But here's my question. This is what I don't know. And I kind of feel for the authors a little bit, because unfortunately there are deserts, there are indie deserts out there where there are no independent bookstores, where Barnes and Noble is their only option. And do those stores really, are they hiring booksellers, or are they still hiring,
I don't
tier
know.
one imports managers?
Yeah.
Which is was historically what they did.
Good book people hard to find.
Well, yeah, we are.
They're hard to find, and
We
I
are.
just think, and I've done, I used to work with some Barnes and Nobles, and
I used to work at Barnes and Noble. I love
some
it.
booksellers.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just they get into that big retail game. It's a different game.
Right. But I think it's hard.
Unfortunately.
I think it is another hard thing for authors though.
Right. And also I think this is another, we've seen in the last few weeks, the ways this business is hard to understand. And this is another example of, if you're a first time author and you think my book should be in my local Barnes and Noble and it's not there, of course, that's going to be very upsetting. But the business of it might mean they can't carry that book for whatever reason.
Or
But
if they're more like indies, maybe they will, because it's regional and they're supposed to have more of a green light locally buying, I heard, but who knows?
Right.
Yeah,
Who
that's
knows?
what they say, yeah.
All the time.
But I think it's just one of those things where, and this is where I'm afraid what's going to end up happening is things like Target has a huge section now in Target that's got books, but it's just, there's not a breadth of
No, it
variety.
never can. It just can't.
And they don't maintain them.
Right. No, they don't maintain it. And so
I
it's
gotta
just,
fly out.
okay.
Okay.
Bye, Gabe.
Okay.
See everybody
Good
next
seeing you.
week.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
So it's just one of those where it's just another one of those things where, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing?
I know.
You
It's
know.
hard. I read those tweets and I felt for the authors.
I do.
But I kind of understand where Barnes and Noble is coming from, because they have to find a way to stay in business too, because their business wasn't the healthiest before.
Correct. But I think it's if they don't survive as an outlet for your big titles and your other upcoming titles as a publishing place to put books, we're all in trouble.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know. Well, with that fun note, everybody,
Yes.
Yeah.
keep
I mean,
supporting indies.
yeah.
That's what we mean. Just the indies.
That's just it. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but in the late 90s, mid 90s, there was 10,000 independent bookstores in the country, and then Barnes and Noble, Borders, came in and just started picking the indies off, and setting up stores right down the road from established indies. Okay.
Just 2 blocks away, they would set up, you know?
Yep. And this was really even before the advent of Amazon. Okay. So, and then all of a sudden by 1999, there was something like 3,500 indies, as down from 10,000. And now that number has jumped back up again because people realize that they don't necessarily, I mean, Borders couldn't handle, they expanded too quickly, other things happened. But people realize that there is definitely, there's so many advantages to going to an indie store.
But I think that the thing that
because of-
people, because of the discovery, but I think that the thing too that people, I saw a very interesting thing on Twitter about how why are people buying books on Amazon? And it's like, well, I don't have an indie in my area. And then this one guy was so funny because he goes, Amazon's probably 500 miles away from you.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Yeah,
don't
true.
need to go to an indie. Indies sell online
They
just
are
like
there, and people just don't care to make the effort. And
Right.
it's so,
Amazon makes it very easy.
I'm a proud indie girl. I have never in my entire life made a purchase on Amazon, Borders, or Barnes and Noble. And I'm proud to say that.
Right.
That's
Not
great.
even non-book stuff have I
Right.
ever not. I've never
It's
once made a
possible to
purchase.
live without ordering
And,
from
and
Amazon.
yeah, and it's just, and people are like, well, I can't. I'm like, I have everything I could possibly want and more.
Right.
I love shopping. I'm a huge shopper. I got 30 pairs of shoes,
Right.
handbags.
Back to Birkenstocks.
Now back to, we'll circle it back around to Birkenstock.
Always back to the Berkeys. I have everything I could possibly want, and I have never once. I got the latest tech gadgets, laptops, phones,
Right.
cute little.
It's a
Disney
conscious
ones.
choice.
You know, it's absolutely.
And we're ending it with the Birkenstock.
It's
we
absolutely
have gone
possible,
over
and
an hour.
everybody
I
can
think
do
we
it.
I know, we
Everybody
probably-
can do it.
We probably
still
should
live,
let
Julie?
people
Are we
go. We're
still-
still live.
We're
Oh,
still
yeah, we're
live.
still live. So careful what you're
Championing my
saying.
indies.
No behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. Everybody, thank you. We do know that you that are watching us do support us because we see your orders come in. So thank you for doing that. But spread the word. Tell people that they don't have to order books from Amazon. You can order from
Use Amanda as an example.
and you can order from an independent bookstore that's not in your neighborhood if you
No
choose.
shit to you.
All right. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
bye, everyone.
Bye all.
Let's see. I got to close this. And